everybody, welcome back to Book Talk with Brianne, episode 7. Can't believe it's already episode 7. Today I'm going to be talking about Breaking Free by Virgil Jacks, How I Escaped Polygamy, the FLDS Cult, and My Father, Warren Jeffs. Now, this book was an intense read. If you're not interested in the FLDS, which is the Federal Church of Latter-day Saints, or with controversial religions or religious cults, this isn't going to be the book for you, because it's entirely what it's about. But I personally have always been very, very interested in the FLDS and religions that center around polygamy, like the FLDS does. So this book talks about Virgil Jacks, daughter of Warren Jeffs, who is the self-proclaimed prophet of God for the church, the FLDS, and it's all about her escape. It starts with her as a very young child, goes into as she becomes a teenager, is put off into marriage, and all throughout her 5 children until she escapes. And it's just, I already knew that it wasn't gonna be like a fun story. It's awful. What happens in that cult is horrific. The things that the women are put through is terrible, but it was a very insightful read, and I thoroughly enjoyed getting to learn more about the FLDS and Virgil Jeffs' first account of what happened to her. Now, it has been about a month, maybe a bit more, since I actually did first read this book. But I am a big procrastinator, and so I didn't book talk it right away. So my details on what goes on might be a little fuzzy, but the general idea is there. So we are started off with Virgil Jeffs. I think we start off with her at the age of 4, and what's important about that age is, I believe, it's either age 4 or age 8 is when she starts to experience sexual abuse from her father, Warren Jeffs, the leader of the FLDS. He would call her into his office and perform sexual acts on her and have her do the same to him. And when she did, he would later claim that she failed the test of God by touching him, and she was giving into obvious desires that she must be having to her father, which isn't true. This is an 8-year-old girl who's terrified and wants this to end, so her idea of how to make it end faster is just get it over, do it, and leave, so she can get away from her father. And this continues until Rachel comes into her mid-teens. And when she gets into her mid-teens, that's when her and her sister are both given the idea by her father that it's about time that they get married. Now, girls in the FLDS do get married rather young. It hadn't always been like that, but since Virgil Jeffs rose to be prophet, it started to become that thing where girls are getting married off young. Now, within the FLDS, they are a polygamist group, so one man will have multiple wives, and this follows the belief that the more wives you have, the higher status you will have in the kingdom of heaven. So, Virgil Jeffs is married off to a relatively young man, considered how old you can be married off to, but I still do believe he is, I think he's at least 10 years older than her. I might be wrong on that, but he is older than her. There is the possibility that girls as young as 14 can be sent off marrying men that are over 50 years old. And so she's very thankful that the man she got, she thought was relatively nice, but the clincher is that she only met him a day before they got married. And so she's terrified, does not want to go off into this marriage, but sees it as her escape from her father. Now, her father has arranged these marriages. That is how it works in the FLDS, is that the prophet, who was originally Virgil Jeffs, Warren Jeffs' father, they arrange all of the marriages, say which girls are going to which men, and with that they can also take away women from men, splitting up families and just doing horrible things. So we follow Virgil Jacks as she's first met with her husband, and her father tells her that on the first night after they've been married to ask for a baby. She doesn't do that. She tells her husband, she reveals to him that this is something that her father's asked of her, but she's terrified of it, and she does not want to have a baby right now. And her husband, thankfully, says to her, that's fine. You tell me when you're ready to have a baby, and then we'll do that. And so another thing with how things are run in the FLDS and other polygamous churches is women have as many children as possible. So you'll see women with, I don't know, like 13 maybe children. If they can have that many, they just keep having them over and over again. Because the idea is there are souls up in heaven that need bodies down on earth. So they have as many children to make hosts for those souls up in heaven. Now, Rachel in total has 5 children, and I believe she has 5 or 6 sister wives, which are so the other women that are married to her husband. Rachel was not the first woman to be married. I believe she was the third, and that caused a lot of stress on the family dynamic. The women of the men are very jealous of the other sister wives, as one could imagine. Just picture you with your husband, who the night prior you had just been in his bed, possibly having sex, and then the next night you see another woman walking down that hall to go to his room, and you know what's going to be going on. It's awful. So there is a lot of abuse between the women, not physical, but definitely verbal and mental abuse that goes on between the women. And it was actually shown that a lot of the Rachel's sister wives were neglecting her children as retaliation to Rachel, which is awful. That's absolutely terrible. From there, we kind of watch Rachel's journey of, she never really believes that her father is the prophet of God, given the things that he did to her when she was a child. She just doesn't understand how God could pick somebody like that. There are various things later. Eventually, Warren Jeffs is arrested because he is accused of sexually assaulting minors, which is true. He has many, many, many wives, and a lot of them are underage. And so he was sentenced to life in prison. He was, for a short time, not a short time, I actually think for a while, on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. And that's the person that these people are worshiping. And so he still is the prophet of God for their church. He is in jail and will remain there for the rest of his life. But him being in jail has almost given him more power, made him more of a martyr for the people in this church. And it's just awful. But he starts putting out ridiculous laws where you cannot... women cannot go to bed with their husbands. Women cannot touch their husbands. You cannot hug. You cannot kiss. All you can do is a curt handshake, and that's it. He put out a rule that women are no longer allowed to have any children. He banned all of the doctors, which are not certified doctors, from the church. They banned all the midwives. If a woman had a miscarriage, it was because she wasn't faithful to God or to the prophet, and so she was exiled from the church. Possibly with or without her children, usually without. So there are families being split up everywhere because this man is deciding what is going to happen. He made restrictions on food they could eat. He took away food stamps from people. Men were working 22-hour days, and if you didn't show up to work and you didn't work hard, you were considered to be against God and against the prophet and exiled from the church. And so a lot of that goes on. And that happens to Rachel, where she is told she has to leave the church. She's in solidarity for, I don't know, I think she spends almost a year maybe just on her own. She's sent off with some of her sisters sometimes with her children. She's separated from her very young newborn. Just all kinds of things. In the end, Rachel does escape. She escapes with all 5 of her children, following several members of the church that she knows who has escaped. I believe the ones that she confides in are her other sisters, and so she leaves with them, gets out, and that's where our story ends. As you follow Rachel from all the way when she's a child to her escape, and it's just it's really sad. You just feel awful for these people, because if you want to leave, if you want to escape, it's very difficult to do so while keeping your family intact. You'll almost certainly never be able to take your husband because he has other ties to other women and children within the church. and it'd be unlikely for him to leave them, and it's very difficult for you to bring your children as well, especially if they are of an age where they are now married with other people, and knowing that that can happen as young as 12, 14, there's a high possibility that you will lose your children quickly, and it's almost impossible to gain them back. And when people are put in solidarity, no one knows where they are. So I've watched news reports and stories and interviews of women who have left the church with their children and have no idea where their fathers are. Before they left, they were exiled, and no one was given the location, and they have no way of contacting him, and they will most likely never see him again. So that's the kind of stuff that goes on in this church. I had to take a break from this book so many times. I mean, I flew through it. It was a very interesting and engrossing read, and I'd been looking for something on the FLDS for a long time. This was recently published. I think it came out in 2017. Again, it's Breaking Free by Virgil Jacks. It was an amazing book. If you're at all interested in Warren Jeffs or the FLDS or culty religions, I definitely suggest picking this up. I couldn't recommend it more. It's the first of the few books I've found on the FLDS that I'm going to read. This one I've already read, obviously. And it was just, I mean, it was amazing. It was an amazing story to read. It included photos of Rachel as a child in the FLDS. You can see them here. It just, I couldn't recommend this enough if this is the type of thing that you're interested in. I thought this was an amazing read. But keep in mind that it's very, very sad, and you don't feel good while you're reading it. So yeah, that's my book talk today on Breaking Free by Rachel Jeffs. I highly recommend it if you are interested in the FLDS or anything like that. Yeah, that's the end of my book talk. I hope to see you guys soon. I have a few other that I'm going to be filming today because I've been power reading like crazy. I do have a book haul that's coming out, and I will hopefully see you guys soon with another video. Bye-bye!